Good morning. How are we all this morning? Here we are in this first week of March in Frederick MB 2023, and I'm starting chapter 37 of Hope's Kiss. Restless, Aaron paced the floor most of the evening. Finally, he decided that he would call Carrie. When she didn't pick up and the call started to go to the answering machine, he disconnected. He was desperate and forlorn without his best friend MJ around. He still grumbled to himself whenever he thought about this horrible situation. How was it this fair in any way? The Americans bragging about their precious Constitution protecting the innocent. Bullshit. Carrie couldn't even protect herself, really. All her and Carrie's bank accounts were frozen, and to top it all off, they wouldn't even allow her the basic right of seeing her legal wedded wife. He tried to think of something he could do to help. Finally, he realized what he could do and do well. He would write out a character reference for MJ. To whom it may concern, I have known MJ Hope for 18 years. In those years, I can only vouch for her honor and compassion towards all humanity. I have known her to advocate for many vulnerable individuals. The earliest was a small boy who was being neglected by his father. She reported the situation to the authorities and even went as far as giving this child a home for 2 weeks while his father was being investigated. In another instance of her help, a young single parent was bettered. She rescued the lady from the coldness of bureaucracy by advocating that she be spared from supplying the name of her child's father. The state wanted to sue him for child support. The father had been physically abused to the point that he pushed the mother downstairs when she was 8 months pregnant. The mother was hysterical after her appointment with her welfare worker and believed she had to risk her safety in order to continue to receive state support. MJ called the provincial ombudsman and explained the situation. The ombudsman stepped in and mediated so that the young woman did not have to name the child's father. There were multiple cases of MJ knowing the right parties to call to help low-income people access clothing or furniture after a fire, or steer them to food banks or other community supports after job loss. She also made the calls to the appropriate offices to attain ID for transient individuals so they could apply for basic income support. MJ is so tender-hearted that she's unable to watch the SPCA public announcements because the sight of abused creatures is so offensive. Not only that, but MJ herself has endured a very difficult childhood and come through it all full of forgiveness rather than full of resentments and bitterness. She has used her talent at writing to advocate for women who are being discriminated against because of mental illness, one in particular by her landlord. She has a reputation in her hometown for speaking up for what she believes in. This woman has done many hours of volunteer work in the community, including several food banks, a community center clothing bank, an anti-poverty organization, the John Howard Society, as well as contributing to many functions at the church she and her wife attend. Yes, it is true that MJ promotes controversial ideas at times, but so did Galileo. But despite all his persecution, he did not recant, and today we know he was right. Leonardo da Vinci could have been in prison for grave robbing, and Rosa Parks for civil disobedience, but these people all changed the world and brought it forward. Aaron imagined himself dramatically orating this defense of MJ's character in front of the courtroom on camera for the world to see. Finally, fatigue overtook the zealot, and he surrendered his keyboard, pulled the mauve blinds, and set his alarm clock and went to bed. Chapter 38. Carrie and Jason arrived back from sightseeing at 11:30 that night. When she discovered that he couldn't get a flight out to Washington for 48 hours, they decided that the best way to pass the time was to show Jason around. She took him all around town to see the historic places and beautiful churches. She showed him houses that were reputed to be haunted. They walked along the green to the art gallery. She pointed to the theater that was the locals' pride and joy. They went to a military museum and to the lighthouse. He questioned her about the lighthouse because they were so far inland. She explained that it was a tourist trap, but that at one time boats had traveled up and down this as a main artery of the city. She recalled the river being full of logs every spring during her childhood. Jason had grown up in Edmonton and had never been out of the city when he was a kid. When they got in, Carrie put the kettle on for herself and pulled the beer from the six-pack she had purchased earlier for Jason. She went to her room and slipped into her flannel PJs and a fuzzy fleece robe. She manufactured a steaming hot chocolate for herself and returned to the living room, where she pulled her feet up under her and wrapped her robe around her legs and leaned back and released a long sigh as she remembered MJ's situation. Jason said, "What do you think the American feds have on MJ anyway?" She shook her head. "Damned if I know. All she does is write and study. She plays Scrabble online, watches YouTube videos. I can't imagine what they think they have to arrest her for this." "What does she study?" "Oh, it's a philosophy or a science. I'm not quite sure. But apparently these people believe they know what reality is and how to operate above it." "What? What does that mean?" "According to them, we are now, we being humans, just a box of five holes for our senses. But they say we, humanity, were once all connected as one soul, but were shattered by the Creator into the creatures we are now." Weird. They say we are on the verge of being transformed back into that one creature. In other words, all humanity will operate mutually to be responsible for the well being of each other. In other words, love your friend as yourself. Unbelievable. Are there actually idiots who sign on to this crap? I'll have you know that MJ is intensely devoted to these ideas and people. She's been studying with them for 5 years. How much do they charge for this crazy stuff? Carrie was growing impatient with this young man now. They don't. She's been taking classes, downloading their videos and books the whole time for free. He looked a little sheepish. "Oh, I see. Well, I wonder how they can do that. They must have expenses, overhead costs for studios and technicians and printing and rent. People who can afford to pay it. They believe that this wisdom must be freely accessible to any who want it." Wow, that's hard to swallow. "They often hold conventions that include cyber students. MJ will be in a cyberspace connection with groups of people from all over the world. Last month, there were students logged in from Honduras, San Antonio, Sao Paulo, Casablanca, Bogota, New Jersey, Florida, Quito, Rome, Europe, Argentina, Boston, Guadalajara, Mexico, Chile, even Moscow. She gets beside herself excited when she sees all these people together trying to literally save the world." Jason leaned back on the couch and drew a long drink from his beer, considering all this information. "Do you think these people are really sincere?" Carrie smiled and nodded emphatically. "Absolutely." She spoke to several of them on the phone, and they were all about the study of the wisdom. She was curious about that too, but they have all been willing to go above and beyond to help her. He scratched at his whiskers and remembered he had neglected to shave. "Well, thanks for the tour. I'm beat. I think it's time to cut some Z's." Carrie stretched her legs out, rose stiffly from the chair, went to the kitchen, placed a mug in the sink, and filled it with water to soak. She went to the bathroom, performed her nightly toiletries, and retired to her bedroom. She missed MJ the most when she went to bed. She was so used to her warmth. She went to sleep to the sound of MJ's chest rising and falling softly against her back. Now she was always cold and restless. She wondered if she should take some melatonin to help her sleep. She checked the nightstand clock. It was almost 1 a.m. She was tired but restless. Carrie sat up on the side of the bed. She prayed the serenity prayer, then she made a list. On this list, she included all the people, places, and things she was powerless over. The American police, the fact that MJ, who greatly treasured her personal freedom, was locked up, the frozen bank accounts, the inability to go down and visit MJ, the looks that some people gave her who didn't really know her and MJ because of the media's portrayal of MJ as a horrible criminal. Oh, and the media. And most of all, her fury at the unfairness of it all. She tore the sheet from the bedside notepad, folded it up, placed it in the slot at the top of the recycled tissue box that they had converted into a God box. This was a place that stored all the lists of things they were placing into God's hands to take care of. After this act, she lay down again, made a pile of pillows in the center of the mattress, and sidled her back up against them. She stuffed the small cushion between her knees and tucked the blanket in between her legs and tightly around her chin. She peeked at the clock once more. It displayed 1:30 a.m. She let out a long sigh and closed her eyes. She imagined MJ trying to sleep 1,000 miles away. MJ had the utter stress of not being in her own bed or even in her own home or country. It must be hell for her. She must be in so much pain now from the tension and lack of sleep. She remembered one thing she forgot to give God: MJ. She rolled over on her back and tried to remember to breathe. She managed to drift up and woke herself up snoring. She returned to her side and fell back asleep and never moved until 3 when she needed to pee. Remembering she had a guest, she quietly tiptoed to the bathroom. Coming from the bathroom a little more awake, she noticed the couch was empty. She thought Jason must be in the kitchen. Maybe he was having trouble getting to sleep too. She traveled across the floor to the small kitchen. It was empty. She went to the coat closet and opened the door. His backpack was gone. So was his leather jacket. Maybe he went out for a drink or something. But why would he take his pack with him? This was weird. Where would he go in a where would he go in a strange city in the middle of the night? She returned to the couch and checked the coffee and end tables in case he had left her a note explaining his disappearance. She searched around fruitlessly. Carrie collapsed into the armchair in fatigue and confusion. This was bizarre. What had happened? Had she somehow offended him and driven him off? He was supposed to be going to visit him in the afternoon tomorrow. Why would he take off like this and not leave a note to let her know if she would return or not? Had she been a fool to trust this man? Had she better cancel a credit card purchased airline ticket? So much for today's reading. Sorry to Maury.